Welcome to Resume Storyteller with Virginia Franco, bringing you interviews with industry experts and regular folks who tested the job search waters and succeeded, and strategies to tell your story and land you job interviews in 60 days, guaranteed. Here's your host, Virginia Franco.
Hey everyone, I have with me today Kristin Sherry. I'm so excited to have her as my guest. She is a career consultant, an international speaker, trainer, and a 3-time author. She is the founder of Virtus Career Consulting and managing partner of YouMap that certifies coaches, career services, and HR professionals as YouMap coaches and YouMap workshop facilitators. So Kristin, thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Virginia. And can I just say, you are the first person ever to pronounce Virtus Career Consulting correctly. So applause.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't look it up, so that's good. That's a first for me, probably. So can you give us a quick overview of what you do, what your consulting practice is all about?
Sure. It's a little confusing because I own 2 different businesses.
Right.
So Virtus Career Consulting specifically focuses on people who need help figuring out their next career move. So Stephanie Hall is my student coach on staff. She works with high school and college students, and then I work with adults who really stuck and unhappy, but they don't know what they want to do next. They really need that clarity. So we use the YouMap career profile that I created to bring clarity. Now, my other company, YouMap LLC, actually does the certification programs. That's a training company. So we certify anyone from recruiters and resume and LinkedIn profile writers to HR people, entrepreneurs even, whoever wants to be able to use the YouMap to help other people figure out those 4 pillars of career satisfaction: their strengths, their values, their motivating skills, and their interests. And then we also do a certification through workshops. And those are people who aren't necessarily interested in coaching people one-on-one, but want to go into colleges or high schools or into companies and do career workshops to help people figure out the 4 pillars of career satisfaction.
And what I love is that obviously this tool and then your coaches, you can help people almost of all ages, from high school to people with long careers. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have YouMapped people as young as 16, and I've YouMapped people as old as 60 who are interested in figuring out kind of how they want to refire after they retire.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, how did you come to this role, and how did you come up with the concept of YouMap?
So that's really interesting. I was, as a coach myself, trying to figure out what tools I wanted to use. I was certified in career coaching in 2007 when I worked in a company. And I was using different tools and just kind of testing. And over time, and I also volunteer in a career ministry that helps unemployed, underemployed, and misemployed people. So I probably worked with a couple of thousand people in career discovery, and I just kind of thought, well, there's nothing really holistic out there. There's no framework. There's all these competitive assessments, so I decided to create a framework that was in one report. So YouMap is just a 15-page report, and it has a summary page with a graphical silhouette of a person. Here are my strengths, here are my values, here are the skills that motivate me instead of burn me out, and then here's how I would describe my personality as it informs my career interests. And then there's this unique contribution statement at the bottom that really summarizes what I do best that others need most in 2 to 3 sentences. And so I just started using it with my own clients. And I started getting all these referrals and people telling people about the YouMap, and then coaches would get wind of it and they would call me and say, where did you get that? How did you know what to use? And I'm like, well, I created it. And I would send it to them. I'm like, this is amazing. So I thought, I need to put this in other people's hands and not just selfishly use it for my own clients. And that's why I created the certification program, because I noticed in coaching forums that I belong to, the number one question coaches would ask is, what assessments do you all use?
What tools? That's right.
Yeah, they don't really have the framework. So I really saw the market need actually came to me, and so I created something in response to the demand.
Do you sort of see it as a best of breed where you get all of the components that you would have gotten otherwise by having to go to 5 or 6 different assessments, or is it completely different?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The first thing is it's difficult I notice clients would lose all of their different assessments when I used all these separate tools.
Yeah, it's a lot of paperwork.
I need you to pull up your strengths guide or whatever, and they say, was that this document that says this on the top? Is that this? And so clients were confused. They wouldn't understand which measured which thing. The second thing that was really an issue was they couldn't really synthesize the information because it was in all different places. And so it was really difficult for even the coach really to paint a big picture of the so what and the now what based on their information. So there's a few things, but also I started, in terms of what I decided to include in the YouMap, after talking to thousands of people, whether it was in the company or my company that I started or the volunteer work I was doing, I started to notice the same language that people would use to describe their career dissatisfaction. And it was fitting into these 4 buckets over and over and over. People are either underwater at work, with not feeling like they can do their job, like they just didn't have the ability, or they were really bored. And so that was kind of like the language people would use when they weren't really using their natural gifting. And then people who would say things like, I'm breaking out in hives, I feel like I'm going to have to go out on medical leave.
Like they're sick.
I cry when I think about going to work. There was always a values breakdown with people. So, for example, their number one value is respect, and it's a culture of disrespect they're working in. The third thing I noticed was people using language about energy. I'm so exhausted at the end of every day. I feel like I got hit by a dump truck at the end of the week. That's a skills problem when people are using what we call burnout skills or low priority skills instead of motivating skills. And then when people were like, I just feel like I just don't care about what I'm doing.
It's apathetic.
Yeah, just this apathy, like this I don't care about insurance or whatever. That is either the interest isn't there, the career interest, or it also can be values. The I don't care about this can straddle both values and interest.
Oh, wow. So you could interpret how they're describing their dissatisfaction and attribute.
Yeah, you're
attribute where the parts are. Okay.
Yeah, I do just a consult with people, and I would predict, just a little game I would play with myself, what their YouMap was going to tell me. And sure enough, I would say, I think you've got a values breakdown here, and whatever. And I would look at their YouMap, and we can pinpoint where the dissatisfaction is happening specifically. And the reason I started doing that was because I noticed something really fascinating. People would tell me reasons why they weren't happy because I capture the notes. But then when I look at their YouMap and we talk about it, it was actually something else.
They didn't correlate.
Yeah, a large portion of the time, they would think they know why they were unhappy, but it actually ended up being something much more specific that they hadn't realized.
Wow. Oh, gosh, you have me intrigued. I want to get you to YouMap me, although I like my job. So so you see people as sort of sounds like the common denominator is that they're dissatisfied with their roles. What do you see a couple of sort of common challenges facing people that I'm sure come to you and just say, I need to find a new job or need to make a career change? What are the biggest challenges you're seeing?
So the biggest challenge is people lacking confidence. They don't believe that it's possible. They think that all they've ever done is all they ever can do. So they don't have the confidence or belief in possibilities. So there's a mental barrier.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first thing. The second problem that I see is people don't really know themselves. So they kind of organically ended up into this career, fell into it, or just did what their mother did or what someone suggested they should do, or eeny, meeny, miny, mo in the course catalog at school or whatever they end up doing. They just kind of fell into the career they're in, or they knew what they wanted to do or thought they knew what they wanted to do, but the academic environment was interesting to them, but what the actual job does when the rubber meets the road was very unappealing to them. So they really don't know who they are, because the fact that they ended up in a career that doesn't fit them in the first place speaks to the fact that we don't know what to look for in the first place.
It's interesting, because if you're right, if you don't, but so many times people don't take the time to think about who you are, what you're good at, what you're not. You just let the tide take you where it does, and until you feel physically ill or bored or indifferent, you don't take action.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is by the late Jim Rohn. He said, if you don't design your own life plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's plan.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what they have planned
happen.
for you? Not much. Yeah. That's one of my favorite quotes, because it's true. We do kind of let life happen to us instead of intentionally taking hold of our career. But to be fair to people, I'm not beating people up about this. It's very, very difficult to know yourself. Ben Franklin said so in a quote: there are 3 things extremely hard: steal, diamond, and to know oneself.
That's interesting. So once you start working with people, what do you find that they're most surprised by? Is there a common theme that shocks them or is unexpected?
The first thing is, the thing that really kind of surprises me is how much people's confidence goes up from the very first
Really?
session. Because we start with talent. We start with strengths. That's where I start first. And people are proud of themselves by the end of that session at their abilities. It gives them a sense of pride. And that's what I love most, because that translates then into hope. They have tangible words, handles that they can kind of pick up, so to speak, to describe themselves and what they do best in a way they didn't have before. So it creates this amazing sense of self-confidence. And that's what really kind of was an amazing thing with this process. That was an unexpected outcome. I wasn't setting out to increase people's confidence, but it's an output of the process, because when you start to see what's right with you, it makes you feel good about yourself and like, wow, I do have unique value that I can give to the world. Because what they find out is only 1 in 33 million people have the same top 5 results in their strengths. And then when you add in their experiences and their personality and their unique context, they become a 1 in 7 billion person. And they statistically see that, get that, believe that, and own that by the end of the process.
And are they able to articulate that unique value?
Oh, yeah. They see themselves in a whole new light. There's this woman that I worked with recently, and she said it best, and she said, YouMap makes you make sense.
Oh, I love that. You need to coin that.
I really should, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
That phrase.
So what advice do you give on the job search front in terms of, someone that comes in and they just know they want to make a career move? Where do you advise them to get started? I imagine it's going to the YouMap.
Yeah, you have to start with your YouMap, but then, of course, the YouMap by itself isn't much help in landing a job. You have to then turn around and start to look at who needs most what I do best. And the best way to find that out is to do some research and have informational interviews with people. So one of the neat tips that I give people is, and you don't have to have a YouMap to use this tip, but what are some key words from your strengths? So if any of your listeners have done the Strengths Finder assessment and they know the skills they're good at, they can take a couple of those key words. So let's just say you're strategic and you are an ideation person, so you're an innovative person, and you love project management. You can go to Indeed.com or any job board and put in a couple of your strengths words with with a skill that you're really good at and enjoy.
Oh, and see what pops up.
writing or project management or customer service or whatever it is, and see what interesting things come up that you hadn't thought of. You can also use the tool called ONET Online, ONET online.org. It's a government database. It's the largest government database with occupations in it. And you can do some keyword searches in there as well, just to see what are things out there that I hadn't thought of. But I think the job descriptions are the best because they're a little further ahead in terms of the changes in the labor market.
With the keywords, right. Mm-hmm. So I did my Skills Finder, 10 years ago, a million years. The only one I remember two. One was communicator and then woo. Like, how would I look up woo on a... I imagine that keyword's not going to be in there, right?
No, it wouldn't. But you have to look at what is the description that Gallup gives you. So people with woo are natural rapport builders, and so they're very, very strong at relationship management. And
there you go. Look, at relationship management you see all the time on job postings.
That's right. And communication, that doesn't surprise me you have since your undergraduate is in journalism.
There you go. Yeah, I was happy to see that one pop up. What a great tip. I love that. And you're right. Indeed, LinkedIn, Google for Jobs, those are all great content aggregators of different roles. So what advice do you have, and maybe it's the same, but someone who comes to you who started job hunting before they came to you and just it's not going well, how do you advise them?
So basically, I have to diagnose where their breakdown is occurring. So if somebody comes to me and they're like, I'm just not having any luck, I have to determine how clear they are on their target, because they might not be having any luck because they need me to refer them to someone like you who is really giving them the job search materials that really demonstrates what they do best that others need most. Sometimes that's the first thing people do, though, right, Virginia, is they're like, oh, I need a job. The first step is, okay, I need a resume.
Right, but you're right. Without a target, it's a waste of an investment, in my view.
Yeah, I always say to people, and I say this in my book as well, that if you try to market yourself to everyone, you end up appealing to
nobody. That's right. Yeah, jack of all trades does not appeal.
Exactly. So I end up asking people questions about, if you could wave a wand and get an interview tomorrow, what would that role be? What strengths of yours would you be using, and what would you be doing each day? And if they can't break into telling me about that, they need to go through a discovery process.
Yeah. What other parts of the pipeline do you examine? Because there's the discovery process, there's your documents. Are there other pieces where you can say, to help diagnose where a breakdown is happening?
Yeah, and I do that with anyone who calls me, even if they're not going to be a potential client. I can tell pretty quickly if they're not a fit for me.
Sure.
I'm not a fit for them, really is what that amounts to. But I help them diagnose where they are because I don't like to send people along without a very solid next step of where to go. So I always tell people, if you are very clear on your target, let me give you a great example. This woman called me and she said, I'm really confused because I've been doing this type of work. It was sort of administrative. And she said, but I'm really good at this. And I found the perfect job for me, and I applied for it. And they actually called me. But then when they called me, they said, hey, we have this job we think that you'll be better for. And it was administrative. And she was like, what? So I asked her, I said, does your resume target where you're trying to go, or does it tell the story of where you've been? And she got very quiet, and she said, I think it probably tells the story of where I've been. So, of course, I would refer her to a resume writer, and then, of course, then she'd need to do the LinkedIn profile next. But when I talk to people and they're like, oh, yeah, I'm getting lots of interviews, but I'm not getting any next steps. So, well, do you get to the phone screen only? Do you get past the phone screen? If people just get the phone screen and nothing more, we have to look at, are you really portraying what you said in your resume as what they need? A, do you have any off-putting behaviors, personality quirks? Are you saying something? Are you turning people off in some way? Do you talk too fast? Do you talk too slow? And we have to look at, are you doing something that's really taking you out of the running because people have biases that they're really kind of launching against you. If they're getting in the door for interviews, and I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but if you're getting in the door and you're making it all the way to the end and don't get selected, then it doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. People are going to hire the candidate that you might be just as good, but there's just one thing that maybe they had better chemistry or something like that. But if you're not getting down that chain to the end of the line, you might need interview prep as well. That could be another thing, that you're not interviewing strongly or making it clear to them why you fit. I always tell people about this role mapping technique that's in my second book. And I always say, you go to the job description, you highlight all the keywords of what they're looking for. You write those down in a column, and in the next column, what are all the experiences, natural personality traits, and strengths you have that align to that, and then tell a little story. Just bullet out a little story. So any interviewer worth their salt is going to be asking you questions based on what
Give me an example of, they want those stories.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of job seekers, they really don't know how to diagnose what's breaking down in their job search.
Well, and your point just underscores how many moving parts there are, and breakdowns can happen at one or a number of those. But so you're right, the proper diagnosing is key to figure out, where you need to put your efforts.
Yeah, and sometimes, honestly, we've got to be real that there are biases in the hiring process. I have lots of clients who are in their upper 50s, and they're really being discriminated against for ageism, and that happens in certain industries more than others. I had a woman call me one time. She said, I'm working she was an esthetician, and she was working in a doctor's office, and she wanted to move into like aesthetics, like beauty, pharma sales. And she told me that she was in her 50s, her late 50s, and I said to her, I am totally an everything possible attitude person, but I have to tell you, I have a lot of pharma clients, who, especially women, who are coming to me because they're being let go once they get to be a certain age. That pharma sales is really, really bad.
The young person's role.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it sounds like you give your clients sort of your unvarnished truth around, look, this industry is notorious for discrimination. This one isn't. Do you have any thoughts on how people can best, manage that employment, that barrier to employment? Because I see it on both ends, people that are too young to do what they want to do, and then, actually more often than not, it's the reverse, where people are worried that they're too old.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. It's really not someone's age that's the issue. It's the interpretations that people make about what it means to be that age. My mother is 73 years old. She'll be 74 this year.
So is mine.
Yeah, look at that.
Yes.
All around the country, the U.S. and Canada, coaching executives and their leadership teams. They probably don't know how old she is, so I've outed her, but my point is she has a very vibrant personality. She's very high energy. She is a lifelong learner that continues to grow and expand how she does things. And so you don't think about how old she is when you're talking to her, because she's so dynamic and energetic. And so when people have strengths like learner or maximizer in their top 5, I'll say you really need to emphasize that in the interview, because people with maximizer are really good at making improvements and changing how things are done. And people with learner love to learn new things and often do. So some of those stereotypes, you have to directly think of what are accomplishments I have, or, the star stories, the behavioral stories I can tell that counteract what someone tends to think about older workers.
And so I feel a lot of it is resistance to change, which, to your point, showing that you're a lifelong learner accomplishes that. Fear of technology is another one that, and I imagine if you take some courses or showcase you create documents that look cutting edge, you sort of and don't have an AOL email, you can give the impression that you're not averse to new technology.
Yeah, I always talk to people about, hey, just go take a course that would look good on your resume that you can put under your education, credentials, and training. Go ahead and take something that will be relevant to where you're trying to move to, just so people see that you're continuing to brush up your skills, and then tell stories about process improvements you've made, about how you volunteered to try out or test the new technology to bring on the team, anything you can think of that will work against those biases.
I love that. Absolutely love that. What advice can you share for someone who, I see this all the time, they really are a jack of all trades. Because their career has meandered, they could do sales, they could do marketing, they can do operations, and they're sort of open to going in a number of different directions. How do you help them to focus or pick a focus?
I help them niche within the generalization. So, for example, let's just say you were an operations person, and operations managers are the most notorious generalist job because you have to manage people and give feedback. You have to be pretty good with technology and work with IT, cross-collaborate with your project management teams, and you have to be able to do client relationship management and handle angry customers that call in. There's a lot of different hats where there's reporting involved. And so what I say to people is, look at your StrengthsFinder results. What are the strengths that you truly do best? And focus on those areas within that generalization. So, for example, I actually was an operations manager, and one of the things I was best at was innovation. So figuring out new operational processes and doing those better. And that's because I have Maximizer and StrengthsFinder, the good to great theme. They're really good at innovation. And I have ideation in my top 5. I'm really good at generating new ways of doing things and seeing connections. And so, yes, I was a generalist wearing lots of hats, but you can choose to brand yourself as a process innovator. So you can brand yourself within a generalization, if that makes sense.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Okay. You really do need to know yourself well to be able to do this stuff.
Yes, and that is self-awareness is the number one predictor of career success, and that's based on research by Green Peak Partners. And so it's really not. In fact, there's this woman named Valerie McMurray who's created an assessment called the Why, and it's specifically for women, and she interviewed women CEOs and women who reported to CEOs to ask them what were the 5 things that really made you get ahead in your career. And lifelong learning was one. I shouldn't get into all of them because we don't have time, but self-awareness and openness to feedback was the women who had made it to the top of the top had said that being self-aware and being open to other people's feedback was really responsible for them getting ahead.
And lifelong learning, yeah, all that.
Yeah.
It's interesting with the lifelong learning piece. I was actually speaking with someone recently who talked about how, the next generation, there's so many jobs that will exist that don't exist now, and so many jobs that exist now that will be gone. And so the gap and the upskilling required is going to be able to stay relevant and stay employed 20 years from now, is going to require a commitment to learning and commitment to feedback as to what you're good at, what you're not, and help you figure that out.
Yeah, we're looking to have a shortage of workers with the right skills. But
right now, I know.
Yeah, more employers are going to upskill their workers. And also the gig economy is going to grow, right, where people are doing freelance work and contract work. And most of the jobs in the shrinking occupations are going to be in service positions like reception, secretarial, data entry, because of automation, technology advances, and foreign outsourcing. Yeah. And also AI is really going to change the future of work, right, because every facet of the workforce in some ways, but human resources and finance are really going to have a lot of changes because of AI. There's a lot of revolutionary new tools that are complementing people's skills, not that people will go away, but complementing your skills. So HR having chatbots to help employees with onboarding, and AI to reduce recruiting bias. And then you're going to have like robo-advisors in the wealth field. And there's something called Wallet that was started by a San Francisco startup that uses AI to help consumers make smart spending decisions. So if you can get on the cutting edge of where you know things are going, AI is going to be a huge field.
It really is. Yeah, it's starting, and I don't see it going anywhere. Exciting but scary.
Yeah.
So this is my penultimate question to you. What are one or two tools that you think that a job seeker or a career changer absolutely cannot be without during their career, during this journey? What do they need in their tool belt?
Well, I think they need a really good, I don't like the word pitch, but they need a really good networking pitch, because about 80% of jobs are never posted. People use it in the job market. They're going through their networks. Hey, I need a virtual assistant, or I need an assistant. Do you know of anyone? A lot of jobs, because you're going to see more and more and more self-employed people, and more than 50% are going to be small businesses. And so those people are always going to their own friends. Like, here's what I need. Do you know anyone?
Yeah.
And so relying on those job boards is going to be like no bueno. So you have to have a solid networking conversation. What am I looking for? What are the skills and strengths and experiences I have that connect to what I'm looking for? And what is the value that an employer is going to receive? If you can't clearly articulate those three things about yourself informally in conversations, you're going to really struggle, because if you aren't clear on who you are and what you have to offer, no one you talk to is going to be clear.
Yeah. And my feeling is that nobody wants to help if you just say, can you help me find a job? But when you engage them and sort of excite them with, here are all the things that I can do for a company, that they're more to give someone a clear sense of how they can help. But it makes them, I feel like it encourages them to want to help more.
Oh, Virginia.
Because then you're helping solve someone's pain.
Yeah, you just tapped on something so important. The majority of people are passive and do the bare minimum required. And so just applying a little proactivity will make you stand out from the bunch. So
true.
Yeah, like my son is.
It doesn't take much to make an impression.
It really doesn't. So my son applied for a job at Target, and I said, if you walk in there and ask to talk to the hiring manager, and you hand him a resume and say, I applied online and I just wanted to come and introduce myself, you have no idea. Just that small effort.
They'll be thrilled. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Did it work?
Well, of course, a prophet hath no honor in one's own home. So
yes, cobbler's children have no shoes. That's my motto as well. So he didn't listen.
No, he didn't listen. But
I can imagine.
He has to make his own mistakes. But honestly, that is so key, that people don't really want to do the work or want to help themselves. They say, can you help me find a job? I get LinkedIn messages all the time. Here's my resume. Can you help me find a job? And I will say to people, you'll have a lot more responsiveness if you target a company you're looking for. You look at that company's page on LinkedIn, you view all of the employees that work there, and you see who in your network knows someone who works there or works there, and you say, hey, I'm having exploratory conversations with people to evaluate workplace cultures that I think I would be a good fit for, and I would love to talk to Jane Doe. I see you're connected to them. Would you be willing to make an introduction to see if I could just have 15 minutes of their time, or even just a quick chat, to see how they're like working there? That is so much more effective. Sam Horn, I love her. She says, confused people don't say yes. So when you say, can you help me find a job, that's a very overwhelming statement to make to someone, and so they'll ignore you or they'll flat out say no. But if you make it very, very easy to say yes for people, most people want to help.
You're right, they do. And people love to give advice.
Mm-hmm.
They do. So, no, I love that. I'm laughing because my son doesn't listen to me either. I gave him the same advice for his college job, and now he's doing his own thing. So, Frustrating. So my last question, I mean, you have 2 books or 3 books now?
I have 3 books.
3. So what's next for you? What do you have time to fit in?
So YouMap is going global. I am certifying people I've certified people in Dubai, and I have people in Canada getting certified and across the U.S. So I'm looking at penetrating the whole world with certified coaches, but also I have my 4th book planned. I'm collaborating with a woman out of Dubai named Dawn Metcalf. She's the author of the Hard Talk Handbook, How to Have the Difficult Conversations That Make a Difference. And we are partnering on a book to help managers properly onboard people, have constructive conversations, and offboard people when necessary with dignity.
Both ends of the spectrum. I love that. Oh, that's exciting. Do you have a title yet, or is it still a work in progress?
We do have a working title, but I can't share it yet without Dawn.
Okay. All right. Well, we will stay tuned. So I have your website and your social media handles and all that online, but if you wouldn't mind, before we close out, sharing how people can get in touch with you.
So
what's the best way?
Yeah, the website, myyoumap.com, is a great way to get a hold of me. My Twitter handle is @Virtus_careers. I hate it, underscore, VIRTUS _careers. Yeah, and then, I don't know, like LinkedIn is a good place. I'm Kristin Sherry, KristinSherry, LinkedIn.com/in/Kristin Sherry.
Excellent. Well, and again, all of that information is in the bio that'll be on the landing page for this site, for this conversation. Kristin, thank you so much. I've learned a great deal, and I can't wait to share this with others.
Well, thank you for having me. It was really, really nice.
You've been listening to Resume Storyteller with Virginia Franco. To learn more about storytelling strategies to catch the eye of today's SCIM online readers, hiring and decision makers, go to www.virginiafrancoresumes.com.